Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining episode 26 of the Anchor Group podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with somebody from Anchor Group's team, Sam Galvin. Sam manages all of the e-commerce projects over here at Anchor Group. So we're going to be able to kind of pick his brain, see what he thinks about some of the most recent trends in B2B e-commerce as we round out the end of the year. So stay tuned. This is going to be a good one.
Hey, Caleb here with a quick interruption. Rather than getting sponsored by a mattress company or some VPN, we decided to sponsor ourselves. And that's why I want to talk to you about our 30-minute NetSuite fix, is where one of our team members will be able to sit down with you for 30 minutes to solve that one thing that's been driving you crazy. At least we'll figure out a path on how to solve it. But there are a number of things that we can solve there right there on a call with you. It is free, no strings attached. So go to anchorgroup.tech/30-minute fix, get it fixed, and get back to your day. All right, now back to the episode.
Sam, thanks for joining the Anchor Group podcast today. We're happy to have you on.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Michael. Super excited to chat with you.
Yeah, Sam, before we really take a deep dive into some of the trends in B2B e-commerce towards the tail end of 2025, let's just get a background for who you are, your role at Anchor Group, kind of how long you've been in that role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my name's Sam Galvin. I am the team lead here at Anchor Group for our e-commerce department, specifically around project management of our e-commerce projects. I've been the team lead now for about a year. Been at Anchor Group for about 3 years total. So my role really is an oversight in delivery of all of the different e-commerce projects that we do, whether that be in Suite Commerce off of NetSuite, whether that be in BigCommerce or even Shopify. So we work in a lot of different areas, and really what my team does is ensure that when you're putting together a new website, or maybe you're migrating websites, that we get you from point A to point B, which really is a great new site that is meeting your requirements. So I manage a team of project managers who do just that, and excited to talk more about kind of what we're seeing and what I do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And hopefully that just paints a picture for the audience as to who you are and kind of your role here at Anchor Group. Now, before we really dive into the trends, quick question about what you just addressed in your role. What does a successful e-commerce implementation or project, we'll say, whether it's a migration, a full-scale implementation of a net new website for a company, at Anchor Group, how do we measure our success on that?
Mm,
And what does it look like? What does a successful project look like?
yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of different areas to talk about. Projects can be long, they can be large and complex. What we really look for at Anchor Group here is making sure that we are keeping people on their budget, on their timeline, and then that we're converting to make sure that we aren't just getting them product and saying, have a good day, we'll see you never. We want to make sure that long term that this website is actually generating the revenue, generating the sales, even just generating more clicks into their general profile as a company. So we want to see the long-term success of these websites. So within the project cycle, you're going to focus mainly on making sure that development of anything custom, migration of data, those are the kind of, you get into the weeds of those things. And we manage that in many different ways, and through many different processes. But ultimately, what we care about is making sure that your company gets the website that they need and can start generating more revenue for your company based off that e-commerce site.
Yeah, well put. And I know you have quite a few projects in flight right now. So let's get into some of the trends about what you've been seeing, because essentially you have a pulse on every project in the e-commerce side of the world that comes through Anchor Group's doors. So I
Yeah.
figured you were going to be a good person to have on the podcast to talk about trends that you've seen here throughout the year 2025, but then also as we kind of round the final turn coming into Q4 2025, some of the hottest trends that you're seeing, or
Yeah.
things that people are talking about that they get excited about on calls, or that project manager are maybe saying a lot of people are talking about. I know, well, I don't want to steal any thunder you might have on your side. So Sam, We'll go to you first. What are some of the trends that you've either seen throughout the year or are seeing at the tail end of the year here?
Yeah. Yeah, just to preface that, like you said, as I'm managing, I get oversight in all these projects, and we work with companies really all over the board. I mean, we work from university bookstore websites to massive manufacturers, B2B, B2C. I mean, we kind of do it all. Um, but yeah, I think B2B is a really interesting place to drill into a bit here and double tap on because um, it's not an emerging field, but it kind of feels that way with everything new going on, whether that be AI, utilizing websites more. We all know the B2C craze and getting those websites up and making a quick buck off that. But I think it's those uh, I would call them like the foundations of our industry and our economy. Those businesses that maybe they're boring, maybe they're just selling paper, maybe they're just selling, manufacturing goods. But those are really kind of the pillars of our economy, and it's cool to see where they are kind of catching up to the advancement in technology. Bit of
Yeah,
a pre.
hey,
Yeah.
Sam, that's a good way to put it, right? The pillars of the economy, or some of the pillars of the economy here in the U.S., are now starting to ride the wave of technological improvements, and
Yeah.
that's, I don't know, it's just an interesting thought on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to insult in any way, shape, or form. I think though that that industry takes us a second to get going in the same way, and is a little bit quicker, or, less quick to adapt, is what I would say. But that being said, there's a bunch
Mhm.
of things, so I wanted to kind of talk about some of them. I'd say the biggest one I'm seeing, especially within our field, is just the desire for a one-shop stop for B2B customers, so our customers' clients, to be able to do everything they need to do, which will ease cost on the company's side in terms of who they have to pay. So trying to automate everything here. And this goes a long way. This goes from anything from just paying invoices, responding to quotes, generating new sales orders, any of those things. All of that happens in a lot of different ways. A lot of what we see in our field as we get into either people's back end ERP systems, their e-commerce systems, and frankly, the way I describe it is messy. There's a lot of different pieces that people have put together over the years to try to get something to work. And the trend we're seeing now is we kind of want a clean slate. I want everything in one system or maybe two systems that are going to allow me um, to clearly understand where all of my data is and get the information that I need to my customers. So I think
Mhm.
to start there, Michael, that's really the trend I'm seeing is that desire for a one-stop shop.
Yeah, yeah, and the world. I know some people might be listening to this and think, "Hey, people have wanted a one-stop shop for a long time." Right, in the B2B ecosystem. But here's what I'd say to that. Yeah, of course, there have been a lot of companies that have said, years ago, 3, 5 years ago, maybe even longer, that we need a one-stop shop for everything, right? But I think with the dawn of AI, I think that brings up the idea of artificial intelligence, of course, but what does that mean for B2B companies? I think a lot of them kind of synthesize that and look through rose-colored glasses with that and think about automation, but then also just
Mhm.
think about process improvement as a whole. Like essentially it the dawn of AI has given these B2B merchants kind of a refreshed perspective, or they now I think see more importance on just like streamlining the business, right? Which
Mhm.
means for many people, okay, bringing everything into one portal, like you're explaining, Sam. And the
Yeah.
way I think about B2B companies is that, or the industry as a whole, if we specifically think about manufacturing companies bringing their stuff online, think about it like a freight train, right? At times it takes a little bit to get going, but once the whole train's going, a lot of movement is happening and a lot of weight is behind that movement. And I kind of go back, say that because of what you mentioned earlier, as you kind of set the stage for some of these trends that you said, you're seeing those shifts in the market, right? That train's really now starting to pick up speed and moving in that direction very well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And jumping off that, Michael, I think it's fascinating the way that I'm gonna say extremes kind of push the norm. I remember when I started, I was working and with Salesforce quite a bit, And so in my day-to-day, I was working in Salesforce, but never did I hear Salesforce mentioned outside of a work context. And then the dawn of AI came, and I'm watching a football game, and Matthew McConaughey is telling me about
Yeah.
AI for
Good
Salesforce,
old
and it's like,
Matthew
wait,
McConaughey.
yeah,
Yeah,
where did
that's
that
right.
come from? And no one ever talked about Salesforce, and now we're here. And I think those buzzwords get people, especially in higher management, to start thinking. They're like, oh man, AI is, they're telling me Salesforce and AI is the thing. I'm 5 steps
Sam, so
behind.
are you saying that those advertisements are working?
I, I'm saying they might be.
That's right.
I
You
don't
think
have
about
stats to
I've
back
seen
it
those.
up.
I've seen those commercials, and hey, if you are listening to the podcast and you've seen football in the past, 6 months or 3 months, whatever,
Here,
you've
yeah.
probably seen Matthew McConaughey on a couple of commercials here. I've thought, why'd they pick him? Why not somebody else? However, he does a pretty good job on those
It's a good
commercials. Not
ad.
gonna lie.
If you can get Matthew McConaughey on any ad, it frankly doesn't matter what the content is. That's a win, in my opinion.
Yeah,
No,
right.
but I do think that is moving the needle. And to the point of, I called it an extreme. I don't think AI is an extreme, but I also don't even think that in some instances an AI is even necessary for a lot of B2B companies. It can be a great tool, but there are already tools that we've been using for years that can accomplish the same thing, if not in a more robust and simple way, that is a little more tested and tried and true than kind of the dawn of AI that we're seeing
Okay.
right
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Let's get into that. What tools are you seeing companies use, I guess, throughout the year here, and what tools are companies currently asking for in their projects that maybe they weren't asking for a year, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago when you started at Anchor Group?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a little bit more on the side of automating features that remove manual work. The best example I can kind of give of this is often sales reps and quotes. And this isn't new, but the way we're thinking about it is kind of new. Um, if I'm a sales rep and I have to call the client, I have to enter in that information into some system, whether I'm writing it down, whether I'm putting it into a backend ERP. Then I have to generate a quote. Then I have to get that approved by my manager. You see where I'm going with this. There's a lot of steps involved for someone to get a sale across the line. What we're seeing really is we want to make sure that this is all automated so that we can save that sales rep time. That sales rep can do more outbound, better ROI on their workload. Um, that's a very simple example of it, but I think it paints a good picture because really what you're seeing is you can automate a lot of these flows. So one I think about a lot is quotes. I think a lot too about what we do at Anchor Group and what we're seeing more, to answer your question, Michael, is the back end pairing with the e-commerce a lot more. And that's a lot of the systems that we work in that the B2B is catching up with recently. I know Shopify has put more money into their B2B. I know
Mhm.
Big Commerce has been pushing their B2B edition as well. Sweet Commerce has been doing it for a while and is a less flashy version, but it works like a charm. You're starting to see, how can I get my back end processes to be more automated so that what my customer sees is always true and is near instant. And I think that, to take us back to AI, is kind of where those two things come together. You could utilize AI to do something like that, but it isn't really necessary because those things are tried and true. And as people
Yeah.
are seeing, wow, what's new with AI? We can almost take them a step back and say, lots of things. Can I tell you what's tried and true and what you're not doing today? Because this could have a massive impact for your business. And that's
Yeah,
where we're
and
seeing that growth.
yeah, and sometimes I'd agree that that's a good starting point. Now, one example of uh request I've heard, on more on the sales side of things, is somebody came to us, actually a couple times we've heard this request, is essentially they're a B2B company and want, whether it's a quote, to be, or a PO to automatically be entered into the single portal, and then have AI essentially synthesize and review that quote, review that PO, whatever it is, and then build. Uh, in different cases, the next step was a little bit different, but essentially, the the company was trying to find an AI tool that could synthesize data, within a doc, upload it to the portal, and then either build a quote or make a purchase or create an order from that. And I would say that's one area where, you know, automation has existed up to this point to help some of that. But when it comes to like actually, um, synthesizing and understanding a unique document that doesn't always necessarily fit in a specific template,
Yeah.
that's more challenging. And that's where I see truly like a quote unquote AI agent actually
Mm.
being helpful at some of these, what's the right term? Some of these pinch points or bottlenecks within a process to help streamline the automation as a whole. Now, what I will say is right now, sometimes the investment of getting that put on a website might not totally be worth it yet. But I think in due time, right, as we look into the year 2026, I think that could be something we start to see come to fruition is true AI agents helping the automation process even more or build on top of the automation process to take out more manual touch points.
Yeah, I want to tap on that a little bit, Michael, because I think what you said there at the very end is building off of that is very key. With everything I said before here, I'm not suggesting don't use AI. Really, the options with AI are limitless, and that's incredible. And it's such an exciting time to be in development because we get to play with these things. But at the same time, a lot of companies don't have the fundamentals down where they can even start doing things like that. So you say, like, yeah, I want to build an AI app that does this automation for my quotes. And they can come to you, Michael, and say that, but you'll look at their e-commerce store and you'll say, this is going to be absurd amounts of money because you don't have a good store to start with. And so that's kind of where, again, back to that extreme coming back to the norm has kind of been the trend is people are realizing they want to be on the cutting edge. They want to be making progress with AI here. And that means we have to get the fundamentals done first, which is good. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, Sam, all that stuff's really insightful. Thank you for hopping on the podcast today and sharing with us a little bit about your thoughts on some of the trends you've been seeing in B2B e-commerce in 2025. And then we kind of chatted about what that might help us predict using AI on top of automations rolling into 2026. I think you and I both are hopeful that AI will have a real positive impact on B2B businesses, help them, those that haven't jumped on board the train, move into modernization in the digital era. I think that in 2026, you and I are both hopeful that that's going to happen. And the dawn of AI is going to help companies recognize the need to streamline and automate some things in their tech stack. So thank you for hopping on the podcast, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great to
And
be here. Thanks, Michael.
thank you all for listening to this episode of the Anchor Group podcast. By all means, if you got questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or streaming on Spotify. We're also happy to answer any questions you might have via email, so feel free to reach out to us. And until next time, keep on chasing greatness. We'll see you in the next episode.
Hey, Caleb here with a quick interruption. Got a NetSuite headache that needed solved yesterday? Then don't sweat it and don't pull your hair out either, because we have something called our 30-minute fix. And that's exactly what it sounds like. 30 minutes with our NetSuite wizard, Mitch, who is there solving problems that are driving you crazy right now. Reports pulling wrong, workflows not working, CSV errors you can't explain. Get it fixed free of charge, no strings attached. Spots are limited, so go to anchorgroup.tech/30min fix. That's anchorgroup.tech/30min fix. Get it fixed and get back to your day.